Hi, this is Alessio. Hope you're well, and welcome to this Bitcoin update. In this video, in just a few moments, you're going to hear a very interesting discussion between me and my good friend and fellow trader Charlie Burton, who you can see here on the right-hand side, and I'll be asking him some important questions about Bitcoin. That's in a few moments. By the way, the reason I'm doing this voiceover here in this video is because when I listened to the audio of my interview with Charlie, I realized my audio wasn't that great in the interview, so I had to do a voiceover so you can hear my questions better. All right, guys, so in this particular section of the video, before I play the video clip, I just want to say a few things here about this chart of Bitcoin. This is a daily chart of Bitcoin. The first thing I want to mention here is this, that on this chart, you will notice something quite interesting, which is that this indicator underneath here, which is called the LT acceleration extreme, notice that we had an acceleration extreme warning signal on this red bar, which corresponds with the top here, with this top you see here on Bitcoin right there, the one that hit the just near the 14,000 levels, which is very interesting. So we had an acceleration warning right here on that bar. And by the way, we did have an orange moderate warning signal back in May, but the orange signals are not actually very strong. They're moderate, which is why it's orange. But the red and the purple acceleration extreme signals are the ones that we pay attention to because they are the extreme warning signals. All right, guys, by the way, just to let you know that this Axel X indicator will be available for members very likely by September of this year. All right, guys, so in the interview that I did with Charlie, I asked Charlie some important questions. And the first question I asked him was what he thought about the state of Bitcoin at the moment, the current rally we've seen in Bitcoin. So I asked Charlie whether he thought that we're potentially in a major bull market that could end up in a five-wave move towards 50 and 60,000. Or did he think we're in a bear market rally in this bearish scenario here? Or did he think that we might have the wild card scenario, the one essentially that says that Bitcoin might actually go down to 6,000 before forming and completing wave 2 and then starting the wave 3 move higher? All right, guys, so let me go and play the video clip here for you. Here it is.
So what do you think about this whole Bitcoin situation? I mean, obviously we had this massive rally. How do you interpret this rally?
Well, I must admit, the rally that we've had, I thought the previous year did look like a basing pattern because it had been going sideways for so long and very quiet. And I think the market needed a flush out of the weak hands. But yeah, I think it's been very impressive so far this year. Even when I go out to a weekly chart, it still looks very bullish to me. Now, for me, though, the difficulty is knowing whether just in the last week or so we've bounced from sort of 9,200 and as of today it was at 10,500. The only thing, I mean, I looked several weeks ago and was sort of looking for 9,000 area as a nice area of support. It didn't quite get to 9,000. It stopped at 9,200. I'm still looking at those weekly charts. I still see the potential for it to come down to 8,000 actually. But if it got down to 8,000, I'd happily be, a longer term buyer at that point. We've got 13,000, which was the most recent highs. So I do think there's a bit of an obstacle. If it's going to go up there, it might test that and it may then back away from 13,000. So a scenario that I think would be really nice is that it's had this tremendous rally this year so far. We're recording this in August of 2019. Would be for it to quieten down again and consolidate for several months. So, find its new range. So whether it comes to 8,000, then goes back up to 11,000, or maybe it goes straight up to 11 or 12 now, and then pulls back a bit, but effectively carves out a range. Some sort of consolidation would really do it some favors because, again, it might help that market. When a market has gone up like it has done, you get into this euphoric sort of mode again, and it'd be nice for it to settle down and then build a platform for maybe another leg higher, even from there. So, but at the moment, certainly, whatever way you cut it, I look at that weekly chart, the trend's up.
All right, guys, so before I play for you the next question I asked Charlie, I just want to say that I do agree with Charlie on that point, which is that the 21 weekly average that we see here on this chart is still going to be an important level for Bitcoin. The reason is that as long as Bitcoin is above this 21 weekly average, as we see here, the probabilities still remains with the bulls. So as long as Bitcoin remains above this key level, the 21 weekly average, which you can see right there, then at the moment bulls have control and the bullish picture still has more probability. Which means this, by the way, which means if for some reason Bitcoin does eventually drop, let's say Bitcoin does drop at some point below the 21 weekly average, then we'll have to change our mind. In other words, if Bitcoin falls below the 21 weekly average and stays below it, that does change the picture from a potentially bullish one to the bearish scenario, or indeed the wild card scenario. In other words, the probability that Bitcoin may fall to the 6,000 level. By the way, that is my next question to Charlie. I asked him whether he thought it's probable that Bitcoin could actually hit the 6,000 level down here. Here's what he said.
Yeah, I mean, it could do, but it's funny actually that you just said the weekly charts and the weekly 21, because that's exactly what I've been looking at. You know, we've got a strong moving average crossovers, weekly 21s, cross the 50, and that's why that 8,000 level I was looking at, because if it does pull down to there, then I quite like that. But absolutely, it could very easily get back down into those 6,000s, because the thing is with Bitcoin is it can, as we know, move so much and quite quickly, so it could overshoot.
Right.
Certainly there could be an overshoot, but technically, like you, until proven otherwise, we are in the midst of a nice rally within this market. Yes, it could pull down to 8,000. Maybe that weekly 21, that's going to be pushing up week by week. It's going to be catching up with price anyway. So that 8,000 level is not static. So before we know it, several weeks down the line, and that's going to be up at 8,500 and 9. You know, so the way that I look at things are probabilities. So for the time being, and unless that's massively breached, then I would want to be a buyer around that area. If it breached and it got down to, like you said, down to that 6 to 6,500 level, that would then be the next level to then say, okay, can it find support here? But either way, in both of those scenarios, I would still be overall bullish on it until proven otherwise, because it's had a major break this year.
Again, guys, I do agree with Charlie on that point. Let me also say that I follow what's called Bayesian probability when it comes to analyzing Bitcoin, which simply means that we allow the market to tell us, we allow price to tell us what it wants to do next. And we, of course, modify our probabilities along the way. Now, my next question to Charlie was simply whether he thought the consolidation or the correction on Bitcoin on this chart has ended.
Do you think the correction has ended yet, or do you think we're still in consolidation mode by the looks of it?
It's hard to know. It's hard to know, actually, because it's at 10,500 and it could just carry on going up from here. It's had a nice bounce this past week or so. So, but when I was looking at the charts just earlier today, it could just go up from here without a doubt. It doesn't have to go lower and pull back that much lower, but a bit like we've been talking about earlier on, sometimes as a trader you just have to let the market come to you. You have to pick your level and then you wait for the market to come to you. Now sometimes the market won't come to you. Like we were talking several weeks ago about gold, and I remember I was telling you that I'd got long back in April, and it's had that amazing run, since it didn't actually take off till late May, but I'd waited to get into that gold trade for months, waiting, thinking, is it running away from me? But you can't chase it. So for me at the moment, the way that I would be looking at that, with the way that I look at the market, is to say, well, if it just goes from here, fine, because I do see it currently in a bull market until proven otherwise. But if I was wanting to get long, I wouldn't be buying it here at 10,500. I'd be wanting to wait for it for that weekly 21. If it doesn't come to the weekly 21, it's just a trade I miss. That's just the attitude that I have towards it.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. There's one thing I've learned is, and actually you mentioned this many times in the past, I totally agree with this. Just don't chase the market. Let the market come to you. Let the price come to you. And it's frustrating. Don't get me wrong here. I think everyone who's watching this video will agree with this, that it is very frustrating when the market doesn't pull back, doesn't come to the levels you want, and just keeps going. It is extremely frustrating. I think that it's important to be disciplined and stick to rules, because if you're just going to be doing impulse buys, impulse trades, or whatever, you're dead. You're going to be all over the place. It's going to be much more risky down the line. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%, because you see it even on a micro level as well. I deal with a lot of day traders, and you see it even on an intraday basis. The markets go flying up, and then you'll see day traders all around the world trying to get in on that, or panicking because they're not in on it. And so it's the same type of emotion, whether it's small time frames like day trades or those bigger picture timeframes like we're talking about with Bitcoin. But you can't, if you do just chase the markets, then you're putting yourself and your wealth at risk, because sometimes it might work out for you, but if you get the wrong price level, when it starts coming back down, how do you get out? And that's where a lot of people go wrong, because they don't know how to get out. And they hold on to their losses,
Again,
is what I'm
I
saying.
think a lot of people, I think a lot of people learned this lesson the hard way in December of 2017 when they bought Bitcoin 19,000. And I know there are some people who are watching this video thinking, well, it doesn't matter because if Bitcoin goes to 50,000, then who cares? But I still think that why risk it? Why risk buying Bitcoin as a parabolic, rise like that when you can just wait for the reversion to the mean, reversion to the averages? It just makes more sense. So I'm with you on this, Charlie. I personally don't think that the correction or consolidation is over yet. I still think there's a probability we may come and test the 21 weekly average. And if we don't test it, okay, so be it. But I think on the balance of probabilities, I don't see it likely at the moment for Bitcoin to make new highs. I would still like to see that correction down to support.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm the same in that it could go up to 11,000, 12,000, 13,000 is roughly the high, the near-term high recently. But I wouldn't want it to try and break that just yet. I'd want it to generally hold up and consolidate. It could consolidate for several months, maybe even a year again. I think that would be good for the longer-term health of that market if it did have carve out that range, like I said earlier on. But yeah, from a trading perspective, I'd be waiting for it to pull back, and then if it doesn't pull back, I miss out.
Again, guys, I totally agree with Charlie on that point. I personally I'm doubtful the consolidation or the correction here on Bitcoin has ended for a number of reasons, which Charlie already mentioned. For one thing, we have not yet even tested the 100 moving average here, and we have not tested the all-important 21 weekly average either. Now, I know what some people may be thinking in this video. Well, what if it never tests it? Well, here's the thing. Maybe, maybe not. But the bottom line is that I'm personally not going to chase this market. As Charlie was saying there's no point in chasing this market. I much prefer to wait for the market to come back to us rather than the other way around. So again, I personally think that my view is that as long as Bitcoin remains below this level, below this high it made, this level near the 13,150 level. As long as we remain below it, the probabilities remain for further consolidation here, sideways consolidation here in Bitcoin, because there's still a chance that even if Bitcoin comes up to this level, this trend line, we may see failure at these levels. And here's the thing. If Bitcoin does, let's say Bitcoin does get above that 13,150 level. Let's say Bitcoin does go above and close above that key level it made right there. Well, guess what? If Bitcoin does close above that level, then I will have to change my mind and adopt a much more bullish stance. Because if Bitcoin does breach that level, then potentially we could be heading higher towards the 16 and potentially 18,000 levels. But at the moment, it does not look very likely. The probabilities still remain as long as we remain below that key level for the 21 weekly to get tested.